Carrington is looking around the room like, oh my God, I've never been in this much fire. I mean, it's getting so bad that now her endorsements are potentially about to pull out on representing DiJonai Carrington.
This just goes to show that DiJonai has no self-awareness in what's going on. DiJonai Carrington runs on threads immediately. White privilege at Indiana Fever. White privilege. You running around with blonde hair. It looked like you trying to be white. It looked like you trying to be a white girl. What are you talking about, white privilege? The white girl just got a technical foul for something she didn't even do. What are you talking about, white privilege, bro? This is why she should be banned from the league. They always run.
It states here, Reebok is reportedly dropping their endorsement for DiJonai Carrington after she attacked Sophie Cunningham. Let's go.
DiJonai Carrington's situation went from a controversial foul to a full-blown career crisis in just 1 week. And what makes this story even more shocking is that the foul itself might have faded away pretty quickly, if not for everything that happened afterward. This isn't simply a story about a referee making the wrong call or the WNBA unfairly targeting a player. It's about one hard foul that could have been yesterday's news, and the decisions that turned it into something much bigger. Because after that moment, Carrington had several chances to calm the situation down. Instead, things kept getting worse.
When this young lady got ejected from a WNBA game the other day for a flagrant foul on Sophie Cunningham, did y'all see that? She got ejected from the game for that flagrant foul right there, and I'll be damned if that wasn't a flagrant too. She mugged her. Damn near came across like decapitating her, for crying out loud. That was definitely a hard foul. Make no mistake about it. Nobody can argue about it. You can say what you want. We know what we saw. No way around it. The DiJonai Carrington foul was clearly unnecessary. It was a flagrant foul penalty too. It was absolutely positively correct call. It was called the flagrant two. That's a flagrant two every single damn time in the NBA and the WNBA.
It all started late in the first quarter of a nationally televised matchup between the Chicago Sky and Indiana Fever. Sophie Cunningham took off on a fast break, looking like she had an easy path to the basket. But DiJonai Carrington came from behind and made contact across Cunningham's head and neck, sending her crashing to the floor. The officials reviewed the play and upgraded the call to a flagrant foul penalty 2, the most serious type of flagrant foul, reserved for contact considered unnecessary and excessive. Carrington was ejected immediately, and as she walked off the court, the cameras caught a reaction that made it look like she already understood this wasn't going to end when she left the arena. But nobody could have predicted just how quickly the situation was about to explode. And if you are enjoying Court Queen's work, let us know in the comments below. Like and share the video to show your support. It really means a lot to us.
Tweeted out white privilege from the locker room of a game that she was playing in. Get this. She fouls Sophie Cunningham hard. Sophie Cunningham, obviously white person, fouls her hard. Flagrant 2, gets ejected, goes to the locker room and tweets out white privilege in the middle of the game. Now here's the kicker to me. A flagrant 2 has to be contact that can lead to an injury that looks excessive. DiJonai, it was about as excessive as possible. If there was any evidence of there being white privilege, this was not it.
Because this is where Carrington had a decision to make. She could have waited. She could have let the emotions settle. She could have simply addressed the foul later. Instead, just minutes after being ejected, she posted white privilege on social media and tagged the Fever. No explanation. No context. Just 2 highly charged words dropped into an already heated national controversy. And that wasn't the only post that raised eyebrows. Carrington later posted the date of the next Sky Fever matchup with a smiley face emoji. To many viewers, that didn't look like someone trying to move past the controversy. It looked like she was leaning into it. And that's when this story started becoming much bigger than one foul. If you're following this story and want more WNBA breakdowns like this, make sure you're subscribed, because what happened next changed the entire conversation.
That this is black privilege, to be totally honest with you, because her posting this white racist comment right after assaulting Sophie Cunningham on the court is actually black privilege, because she knows the WNBA won't do a single thing of significance about it. And imagine if the roles were reversed. If Sophie made a comment similar to this, then she'd likely never play again. And actually, we just saw this from Coach Sandy Brondello. She got disciplined for making, I believe, a pretty innocent, maybe, offhand comment about talking about Angel Reese and saying, saying that she's a protected species, she was suspended and disciplined. And I think if that's the standard, then DiJonai should be too.
Now stop and think about the optics for a second. A player gets ejected for a flagrant foul and almost immediately responds by using one of the most politically and culturally loaded phrases in America. And the biggest problem? There was no explanation attached to it. Whatever Carrington intended to mean, and she would give multiple explanations for the post in the days that followed. Millions of people had already seen the first version. To many, it appeared she was suggesting that race played a role in how the situation was handled. That is an enormous implication to make. And once something like that goes viral, you don't get to control how everyone interprets it afterward. You can explain it. You can clarify it. You can try to walk it back. But that first impression is already out there.
Is this all some sort of bizarre PR strategy to attract eyeballs, or is the WNBA fundamentally broken?
No. That's you, because you're a good person trying to find some kind of rational reason for doing this other than what it is. It's pure and simple racism and hate. They're mad that the best player in the league is a heterosexual white woman. Let's just be honest. She's not one of the confidants in their creed. And so therefore it's been a concentrated effort to go after her. Even her head coach doesn't stand by. So, and I think it's hilarious, and at the same time, they don't know what a woman is. And I'm very proud of Freedom and other gentlemen for finding out who they are. And I wish them the best. And hopefully the league will, since it's an all tolerant league and their head coaches wear shirts about trans women count. Well, here's two. And I hope they give them their opportunity, and the young lady in France as well. So I think it's a league that has got away with being racist and disgusting to people. And now Americans are smart to it. So hopefully they get some of their own, but I wouldn't let my daughters watch it.
And that post spread fast. Within hours, the conversation had completely escaped the basketball court. What started as a flagrant foul was now a debate about race, intent, officiating, and accountability. Suddenly, people weren't just asking whether Carrington's foul was excessive. They were asking whether she had just accused the officials, and potentially the league itself, of racial bias without providing evidence. National outlets picked up the story. Sports talk shows were discussing it the following morning. And the strangest part? The basketball itself was becoming almost secondary, because Carrington's situation had officially transformed from a controversial foul into a national controversy that was now following her everywhere.
We are paying attention to what DiJonai Carrington did to Sophie Cunningham. It was not a race-based decision. And to call that a white privilege-based foul is to completely undermine the term of white privilege and to also completely ignore the rules in basketball. You hit her in the head, you drew blood, you didn't connect with the ball at all whatsoever. So to me, it was just very ignorant and to some degree asinine by DiJonai Carrington to suggest that that call was based on white privilege. Have we seen examples of white players make that same foul and get away with it? Yes. Have we seen examples of black players make that same foul and get away with it? Yes. There was no white privilege involved in that specific call. DiJonai, you hit her in the head and you drew blood.
And then the backlash found a much bigger microphone. Former NFL player and media personality Emmanuel Acho took aim at Carrington's post on his own show, and he didn't hold back. His argument was simple. Carrington hit Cunningham in the head, made contact without getting the ball, and caused her to bleed. Acho called the decision to frame that specific foul as a product of white privilege ignorant and, in his words, asinine. And this wasn't some random comment buried in a social media thread. This was a major sports media personality putting Carrington's judgment under a microscope in front of a huge audience. Once a clip like that starts circulating, it can become the soundbite people remember long after the original incident. But Carrington wasn't going to let the criticism sit there. And this is where her attempt to defend herself created an entirely new problem. Rather than calmly explaining what she meant, she responded directly to Acho on X. She wrote that she had never claimed the assessment of the foul was white privilege, saying that was his assumption and telling him to exercise his critical thinking skills. She even brought up his psychology background before continuing her defense, pointing to her own education at Stanford and arguing that she would never use a phrase like that as a rhetorical weapon without evidence. But now there was a major contradiction. She was saying she never meant the post to describe the foul as white privilege, while simultaneously defending the post and attacking the person who criticized it. That doesn't create clarity. It creates more questions. And instead of ending the controversy, Carrington had now added another layer to it. Because people weren't just debating the original post anymore. They were debating her response to the criticism. For some fans who may have been willing to give her the benefit of the doubt after the foul, this exchange became the moment their opinions started changing. Because it didn't look like a simple misunderstanding being cleared up. It looked like an argument she was determined to win after the original post had already put her in a difficult position.
Oh my God, it's getting real. It is getting very much real. For in the field, for them pockets. That's what I like to see. Pockets getting hit hard, bro. Hard. Because somebody need to hold these players accountable for the stupidity they have been putting out. Because it has been a lot of stupidity. And to add even more salt to injury, thousands of people are calling for Reebok to drop their endorsement for DiJonai Carrington after she attacked Sophie Cunningham. Now, this was from earlier this morning.
And 2 days later, Carrington offered yet another explanation. Standing in front of reporters before Chicago's game against Seattle, she described the foul itself as unfortunate and unintentional, explaining that rust from returning from a foot injury had affected her timing. But when reporters asked about the controversial post, the answer became much less clear. Carrington said she had already spoken with people who had the potential and agency to make the change she wanted. But she still didn't plainly explain what the original post meant, or exactly who she was talking about. And now the problem was obvious. 3 different explanations in 3 days. The foul was unfortunate and unintentional. The white privilege post supposedly wasn't about the foul. And then she publicly defended that same post against someone who interpreted it exactly that way. That kind of moving target can turn one bad night into a much bigger reputation problem. Because at this point, reporters, fans, and potentially even business partners weren't just looking at the foul. They were looking at the inconsistency. Nobody could seem to get a straight, consistent explanation. And every time Carrington tried to clear things up, another question appeared. That's how a controversy keeps growing. Not necessarily because of one mistake, but because every attempt to explain the mistake creates another headline.
When black people do some foolishness, they gotta be held accountable just like any other damn race. And I'm telling you right now, she need to be held accountable. So Reebok, stick it to her. Stick it to her. Because what she did was ruined a brand deal like no other. She ain't even all that on the basketball court anyways. Common sense would have told you not to clothesline Sophie Cunningham from hell. Because you want to know why? The backlash you're going to get from that decision will affect your pockets. And I'm so happy that these brands are now seeing what we've been seeing. A whole lot of BS going on from these players. And I'm telling you right now, more players need to lose brand deals when they do stupidity, especially to Caitlin Clark.
Meanwhile, Sophie Cunningham did something that made the contrast even more noticeable. She stayed composed. After Indiana's win, Cunningham was asked directly about Carrington's controversial post. Her response was simple. I believe the league is addressing that. This has nothing to do with race. She also pointed out that she had experienced a similar incident the previous year, was ejected, and believed she deserved the punishment. No shouting, no social media war, no long explanation, just a calm response and a reminder that she had already been on the other side of a controversial flagrant foul herself. And that contrast became hard to ignore. On one side, you had Cunningham keeping her answer short and focused. On the other, Carrington was still dealing with questions surrounding the original foul, the social media post, and multiple explanations afterward. At that point, this wasn't only about who was right on a basketball play. It was about how each player handled pressure when the cameras were on. And that matters, because franchises and sponsors aren't only watching what happens during the game. They're watching how athletes respond when everything goes wrong. And in this particular exchange, Cunningham came across as calm and controlled, while Carrington still looked like she was trying to figure out exactly how to explain a situation that had already gotten away from her.
After getting thrown out of the game for her ridiculous foul on Sophie Cunningham, went to social media and claimed white privilege. To do that, Emmanuel Acho basically pushed back and said you can't call everything white privilege. It undercuts the idea so many have talked about. And then DiJonai went to X and responded to Emmanuel Acho. He said, I never once claimed that the assessment of the foul was white privilege. That was your assumption. Try exercising your critical thinking skills. No, you studied psych. Furthermore, I'm the last thing from ignorant or asinine when it comes to speaking on white privilege. Do your research on that one. Actually went to school, one of the top universities, might I add, to educate myself on this exact subject. I would never use that term as a rhetorical weapon, knowing the historical and social weight it holds without having the proper evidence to substantiate it. So, in your face, Emmanuel. What I want to know is, then why were you posting white privilege in the locker room immediately after being ejected? What were you randomly sitting in the locker room having just been ejected thinking about when you posted white privilege and, by the way, tagged the Indiana Fever?
And this is where the controversy could become much more serious for DiJonai Carrington, because now we're talking about her business relationships. Reebok signed Carrington to a multi-year deal in April of last year, positioning her as one of the faces of the brand's basketball relaunch alongside the Engine sneaker. At the time, it was a major opportunity. Her Most Improved Player award and All-Defensive First Team honors had helped establish her as one of the WNBA's rising commercial names. But once this controversy exploded, the reaction didn't stay on basketball social media. Fans started going directly to Reebok's pages, demanding that the company reconsider Carrington's endorsement deal. Some comments called for her contract to be canceled, while others criticized the entire sequence from the foul to her social media response and the explanations that followed. And this is where things get real. Because when a controversy starts affecting a player's relationship with a major brand, it stops being just a social media argument. It becomes a business issue. Companies pay close attention to how their athletes are perceived during major controversies. And when negative comments begin overwhelming the conversation around a player and her brand partnership, that's something corporations simply cannot ignore. The question now isn't just what happened on the court. It's whether everything that happened afterward could actually cost Carrington beyond the basketball court. And now, according to multiple reports circulating around this controversy, Reebok may be doing exactly what some fans were demanding. The reports claim the company is moving toward terminating its deal with Carrington entirely, rather than continuing to stay attached to a controversy this messy. Now think about what that actually means. Brands don't simply walk away from athlete partnerships on a whim. There are contracts, marketing campaigns, money already invested, plans built around that athlete's image. So if Reebok is truly moving to distance itself this quickly, it shows just how serious the situation has become from a business perspective. Because for a company, every additional day attached to a major controversy creates another opportunity for its own name to get dragged into the headlines. And Reebok has one question to answer for itself. Is keeping this partnership worth the potential damage to the brand? If the reports are accurate, their answer may already be becoming clear. But here's the part nobody really wants to say out loud. None of this had to happen. A flagrant foul happens in basketball. Players get ejected. They deal with the punishment. They move on. And usually a week later, most people have already forgotten about it. That's not what turned this situation into a much bigger problem for Carrington. It was everything that happened after the whistle. The initial post tagging the Fever with a loaded phrase and no explanation. The smiley face attached to the date of the next matchup. The combative response to Emmanuel Acho instead of simply clearing up the misunderstanding. And then the press conference, where another explanation left people with even more questions. Every one of those moments was a choice. Nobody forced Carrington to post that first message. Nobody forced her to respond to criticism the way she did. And nobody forced her to keep the controversy alive when she had opportunities to let the situation cool down. That matters when a major brand is watching everything unfold in real time. Because sponsors aren't just paying for an athlete's talent. They're also investing in that athlete's public image. And brands don't want their logo attached to headlines they suddenly have to defend. One controversial play can be survived. But when controversy keeps coming from post after post and explanation after explanation, the calculation starts to change. And then there's another angle that has been raised throughout this entire situation: the competitive tension between Carrington and Cunningham. Cunningham has become one of the most talked about players in the league this season. She's attracted national attention, built a huge social media following, and become part of conversations that go far beyond what happens on the basketball court. Carrington, meanwhile, has been having a strong season of her own, but hasn't received the same level of attention. And when two players already have history on the court, that difference in attention can create another layer of tension. Now, to be clear, we can't know exactly what was going through Carrington's mind during that play. But when you look at the timeline, the foul, the immediate social media post, the response to criticism, and the continued explanations, it's understandable why some people started wondering whether frustration had boiled over. And regardless of the motive, the consequences are now very real. A reported Reebok termination could make other brands much more cautious about partnering with her. League front offices could start asking whether the attention surrounding her creates more distraction than value. Fans who were previously neutral may now have a reason to boo her every time she steps onto the court in an opposing arena. And her teammates can end up answering questions about a controversy they had absolutely nothing to do with. That's how quickly one incident can spread beyond the player who was involved. And once again, compare that with how Cunningham handled her own flagrant foul situation last year. She was ejected. She admitted she deserved it. And then she moved on. No extended social media battle. No escalating explanations. No attempt to turn the incident into something bigger than it needed to be. That's the difference between having a bad night and creating a career-level controversy. One player allowed the moment to pass. The other kept adding fuel to it. Post after post. Explanation after explanation. Until a brand that had invested real money into her image was reportedly forced to reconsider the partnership. And that may be the biggest lesson from this entire saga. Talent can get you a deal. Composure can keep it. Nobody is questioning Carrington's ability on the basketball court. Her production speaks for itself. But this past week showed just how quickly the situation can change when millions of people are watching every post, every quote, and every attempt to explain a controversy. The foul started the story. But everything that happened afterward is what made it so much bigger. And if the reports about Reebok are accurate, Carrington may not be losing an endorsement simply because of one hard foul. She may be facing the consequences of what happened in the days after it, when she had multiple opportunities to slow everything down, and chose not to. And that's why this Reebok situation could end up being remembered as the first domino, not the last.